Hello everyone, this is Outstar and welcome to the next episode of Coteries of New York. So today we're going to probably go on another event, the meeting, with Agathon the TREMERE, and I know that some people in the comment section actually were writing to me that the game is not designed in the way that you're supposed to meet all of the NPCs in a singular playthrough. It's more about trying to explore singular NPCs in a very thorough way, so in the end they can actually stand by your side as your coterie members, and I understand that and I acknowledge that this might be the case, but still, I know that if I would be playing this game on my own without your guys' input, and if I would be playing it for the first time like now, I would want to explore all of the possibilities, all of the possible NPCs that I can meet. So I'm going to play it just as I would without the people's input. So I will probably go meet Agathon next if I will be given the chance. And if I'm going to get punished for that, then we'll see. I'm going to embrace whatever is going to await me. Anyway, let's rest. Oh, new things. A noisy reporter, part 1. There's a sleazy reporter from Gossip Magazine sniffing around Sophie's Haven. She could use your help with the problem. I see. Then we have Faith and Myth Part 2. Benoit Sagal wants to meet again at the cathedral. You wonder whether that mysterious priest will be there. And we also have Agathon. Actually, I do want to meet him right now. This seems to be an interesting side quest that we might have as well do, and probably won't be available later on, but still, I feel like Agathon is someone that I really want to meet at least once in this game. Sophie's mention of a vampire clan of blood sorcerers sparked your attention. One of them, Agathon, could potentially be your introduction to the bizarre powers of the TREMERE. Bizarre indeed. Let's go and meet him. Continue. You arrive at the address given to you by Sophie, a small bookstore smack dab in the middle of Broadway, of all places. What really catches you off guard, though, is the store's display. From what you've heard about the TREMERE, they are infamous for their ties to the occult and the mystical. And yet now, looking at the oddball collection of items in the display window, it all feels borderline satirical. The books here cover everything from Ayurvedic practices and homeopathy to wellness and self-motivation. The vaguely amusing juxtapositions don't end there either. Reminds me of the fact that apparently Gwyneth Paltrow Goop thing is on Netflix right now, and I have to watch it and I have to actually craft a kindred cult based on the cults of the Blood Gods book, which would be surrounding Goop. I think it's a perfect concept for a kindred cult. You notice a copy of Anton LaVey's Satanic Bible tucked behind a cheap-smiling Buddha. A scientific journal on hematology sits next to a teen-oriented pamphlet on the blood-type personality theory. Aww. A number of religious and quasi-religious symbols, lockets, pins, and various emblazoned paraphernalia are haphazardly strewn across the display and between the tomes. Before you even open the door, you can smell the burning incense and hear the corny Far East-tinged music seeping through the crackling speaker mounted above the entrance. It's much more quaint than what you expected from what Sophie told you about the so-called warlocks. It doesn't look like they have much interest in impressing outsiders. Then again, if there's anything you've learned these past few nights, it's that the appearances can be deceiving. At this time of night, the shop appears to be closed. Regardless, you ring the bell. You hear someone shuffling around inside. A brief moment later, the latch slides and the door is pushed open just a few inches. A tired-looking blonde in loose clothes appears in the crack. She seems confused, like you just woke her up. She lets out a yawn, scratching at her tattooed neck. Finally, she squints in your general direction. Her pierced lip curves into an awkward smile. I'm looking for a guy named Agathon. Is he around? The girl gives you a suspicious look over, but opens the door. She takes a few steps back, and you hear footsteps coming from behind the floral curtain that covers the back door. A bespectacled, smart-looking woman emerges and looks straight at you. Come in and follow me. Just don't touch anything, please. I know that she's a very known NPC from one of the Vampire the Masquerade books, but come on, she totally looks like the TREMERE protagonist from Bloodlines. doesn't she? Like just the shape of the glasses, if that would be different, but she looks totally similar. You follow her through the store, inside as expected. The stuffy air smells of sandalwood, frankincense, and a dozen odor aromas. The woman leads you behind the curtain and through the back door, into a rickety staircase. A flight of steps takes you up to the second story. You instantly notice the change in decor, as the tacky New Age bookstore gives way to something resembling a cross between a library and a workshop. And yet again, a really beautiful background. This is one of my favorite things about this game so far. The backgrounds and the artwork is just really, really beautiful. There's one criticism that I've read about this game so far, which I would kind of agree with, I guess, so far when it comes to graphics. One of the basic of the visual novels, and you know, as a visual novel developer, it's something that I wouldn't imagine making my game without, is the fact that whenever you have characters, you also supply at least 2 body positions or facial expressions for them, so you can, when there's a dialogue with them, you can actually show different emotions. And while I actually noticed that the character art is really nice and detailed, and there are a lot of different characters in the game, I know that it will be probably very expensive to do. I'm just saying that, you know, it's kind of like a standard for visual novels to have different faces and body types, at least 2. So you have the interchanging stances when you have the dialogue going. But yeah, for the graphics, that would be my only criticism so far. But the rest of them looks really, really good. The way that the characters are drawn and backgrounds are drawn are really enticing, and I like the style a lot. If just there will be some variety in the facial expressions, that will be way better. The smell here is strong too, but much more layered. You're not sure what to make of it at first, but with each whiff, it becomes apparent. Blood. The aroma, though, subtle at first, soon becomes overpowering. It takes you a moment to adapt and focus. I don't think you know who you're speaking with, so an introduction is in order. My name is Aisling Sturbridge, and I am the High Regent of the Chantry of the 5 Boroughs. So yeah, she is an NPC known from the VTM fiction, and I'm actually going to read the encyclopedia about regents. Every chantry has a regent. The regent is responsible for the tutelage of all other Tremere in the domain. While the regent may not teach them personally, she must ensure all Tremere are being educated. The regent's other duties extend to the clan's protection in the domain, and sometimes its representation on the Primogen Council. That is true, but also nowadays in the V5, when the clan Tremere experienced the clash of the pyramid, it is a little bit different, as not all of the Tremere are under the regent, and not all of them are a part of this whole hierarchy. You can also have Tremere of House Karna, for example, or House Ipsissimus, the Anarch house, that do not have this hierarchy and do not obey the regent. So I would say in general in the V5 lore, Tremere is a little bit different. This is the establishment, the status quo that was still there when the Bloodlines was released, the first game. You had Regent Maximilian Strauss, of course, but nowadays it's a little bit more different. Chantry, a traditional name for the Tremere headquarters in the city, usually part shelter, part library, and part laboratory. This is going to also, I think, be a thing in Bloodlines 2. With the newcomers having their domain in the university district. I feel like it's going to be some kind of a chantry. Again, although the pyramid did clash officially in the V5, and I believe that Bloodlines 2 may incorporate these themes somehow, because Victor Goga is not called the regent per se, and their domain is not called the chantry. I feel the vibe I'm getting so far is that it's going to maybe try to follow the suit of the traditional House Tremere, and Victor Goga may play this role of a regent, while the university district is going to be their chantry. We'll see. Anyway, you are Lafayette, correct? I have to say, you're lucky the ward outside the building is only there for notifications tonight. Otherwise, it would have been quite unpleasant. To answer your question, Agathon is here, but he's hard at work and I wouldn't want to disturb him. Am I to understand this is a social visit? High Regent sounds important? Of the Chantry of the 5 Boroughs. That's quite a mouthful. It might sound fancy, but that's because there's a well-established tradition behind it. One you'd be wise not to ridicule. Some might take offense. Me, for one. Of course. What is it that you're here for? I didn't expect to meet you here. I came here to find Agathon and talk to him about working together. As you might have gathered, he's busy at the moment, so am I in fact. So unless there's anything else... Suddenly a man enters from a side room. He doesn't even look at you, lost in his own thoughts. I have a day's link. I think I know how to find it. He catches himself as he notices you. His face turns sour. A visitor. Yes, we were just discussing you, in fact. Is that so? I'm looking for allies in the city. I was wondering if you'd consider teaming up. Not the best way to put it, but... Teaming up? He seems very confused by the notion. What for? I could assist you in your work. I can be quite helpful, knowing you can count on someone to return the favor. Is that right? He seems to consider it, then turns to Aisling. Herr Regent, may I ask your advice on this? Aisling looks at you with a nary sign of emotion. I believe that you are more than capable of carrying out your task, my child. I do not think any assistance will be necessary. Oddly enough, he seems somewhat disappointed. Your confidence in me is appreciated, High Regent. It has been earned, so it's settled then. I would kindly ask that you leave, fledgling, if we have many matters to discuss. Matters not meant for undiscerning ears. Both of the warlocks look at you expectantly. Wait, please, I didn't mean any disrespect. I'm sorry if we started off on the wrong foot. You only get one shot at the first impression, and you've missed yours by a mile. So if you can think of anything clever to say, now would be a good time. Otherwise, you know where the door is. Listen, frankly, I'm not sure what it is you want to hear. Is there anything I can say to make it up to you? This is not the way to say it, Lafayette! I picked it, thinking that you're going to be smarter, but you're stupid! You misunderstood me. It's not about what you're willing to say. Talk is cheap. But if you're willing to actually do something for us, you might be useful in our current predicament. What do you have in mind, High Regent? Why don't you start by giving our intern here a brief explanation of what it is you're after? Agathon gives Aisling a hesitant look. I'm not really sure if I pronounced it right. Isn't it Ailing? Because I feel like it's Irish or something. I might make very big mistakes right now, but I have no idea. But I'm going to call her Aisling right now because that's how I would read it. But obviously that might be of Irish descent or Welsh or the things I have no idea about. So that will be Ailing probably. I have no idea. But the woman nods approvingly. Encouraged, he turns towards you. A member of our clan disappeared with the other trace a handful of nights ago. While the High Regent investigates if any foul play was involved, I have been tasked with recovering her research notes. If there is anything left to recover, that is. I may have an idea where to start looking, and I suppose this is where you come in? If you truly wish to help, I could use your assistance tonight. Right now, in fact. Given the time we've just wasted on idle chatter, I should leave immediately. And the missing kindred, who is she? A single glance at Ailing is enough. You can tell you're not getting an answer, at least for now. We're after her research. That's what you should focus on. These people aren't in the habit of making things simple. Facing layers upon layers of secrecy, you can only hope that what lies beneath is the real deal. I'm heading out. Are you coming or not? Sure, I'll join you. Very well. He gives Ailing a slight bow. I think it's Ailing. Like, the more I say it out loud, I think it sounds right. Herr Regent, with your permission. She nods. Before you go, however, Lafayette, defer to Agathon in all things. Our clan values obedience above everything else. Prove you can follow, and this might turn into a mutually beneficial relationship. But that is true. Back before the pyramids clashed in Vienna, Clan TREMERE was actually so crazy about obedience that they would blood bind their children right after the embrace. So basically it was a normal thing that child would be blood bound to their sire and that sire would be blood bound to their sire. So that would create this whole pyramid. And that's how Clan TREMERE was assuring that obedience is going to happen, basically. And it seems to me from the relations that Agathon has with Ailing that it seems like he is also under the bloodbound. I will await his return and his report. Good luck, my child. Agathon bows again and heads out, urging you to follow. The High Regent watches you leave. Outside, Agathon leads you to his car. It's almost funny seeing him get behind the wheel. Somehow you'd expect a more mystical means of transportation. You drive south. Look at his evil eyes! Getting to the Lower East Side. Agathon seems lost in thought. Either that or he's a very careful driver. Either way, several minutes pass in silence. So, the High Regent is your sire? Did I get that right? Yes. He seems to be thinking of the right words before he decides to address you again. Let me ask you something. Why me? There's likely a couple hundred of us kindred in New York, yet you seek me out specifically. Why? I've been told of a few younger vampires I should meet. You sounded like an interesting guy. Interesting, I see. Once more he grows silent. You're unsure whether to continue prying as your driver seems to disappear into his thoughts. You drive into Williamsburg and stop by a fancy-looking building. We're here. There's a restaurant on the top floor. You wanted to help, so here's your chance. I need you to get us inside the VIP lobby. Once we're in, I need about half an hour of focus and some space. It'll be up to you to keep attention away from the room. Can you do it? Yeah. He doesn't wait for an answer and points to the front door. Go ahead. I'm right behind you. The two of you, I guess I get why they actually wanted me to join the mission. I'm a narrator, I'm a talker, although Lafayette really screwed up the talking when he was in the chantry, but I doubt that Agathon would be the one to talk his way through getting into a VIP lounge. That's the narrator thing to do. The two of you take the elevator up to the restaurant. The door opens, and you see that there are only a few guests left, sitting at their tables. An important-looking staff member approaches you. Good evening, I'm very sorry, but the restaurant is closing for the night. I can make a reservation for the next week if you wish. Hey, we're not your regular customers. In fact, we're location scouting for a movie. We'll just take a quick look around and we'll be gone. No, I'm sorry, we are not interested in being featured in a movie. I will have to ask you to look elsewhere. I would suggest Smith & Wollensky or the 21st Club. It's fine, we can come in. It's all good, we can come in. We'll be in the VIP lobby, it won't take long. The man blinks. A confused smile appears on his face. This is not exactly how presence works. That will be more of a, like, I guess with a lot of successes, maybe. Yes, of course, not a problem. Please come right in. If you like forcing something so much, because that would be, because presence has the first power of awe. And awe is very much powerful because it actually adds dices to every possible charisma, persuasion, manipulation kind of a role. Basically, the social roles are being boosted by your presence. And it does give you a very big pull, usually, because you can also add the dices if you're beautiful or stunning to that, so it can create a huge pull. But the problem is, it's not actually about forcing people to do something for you or forcing people to believe that you are this or that. It's more of an incentive to believe you when you are trying to be persuasive. And in this particular case, Lafayette wasn't really trying to be persuasive. He just said, we're going to be upstairs, goodbye. And that's more of a dominate thing, I would actually say, when you are just forcing your mindset on someone and just yeah, even if that doesn't make sense, they have to just agree to that. That's dominate. And presence is more about, I will try my best to make sense, but you're also going to think I'm very enticing. So I wouldn't really agree with writing presence this way. I feel like it should be a bit of a persuasion still. But yeah, sure. Let's just say that he had a lot of successes. So even though it was quite of a big bullshit out of a sudden, then it just worked. You walk in trying to look casual and make your way towards the VIP lobby. You step inside and close the doors behind you. It's a nice place, very highbrow. Lots of old, expensive-looking furniture and private rooms to discuss any sordid business one discusses when you're that rich. Your companion looks at you with something akin to admiration, or at least that's how you choose to interpret the slight change in his usual somber facade. Not bad at all. He inspects the room. It's unusually cold, and Agathon soon discovers why. Looking behind the curtain, a window hangs open. The handle and lock look like they've been dissolved, as if with acid. God damn it, Juno. What happened with the window? Somebody broke in. I think I know who. He takes a frantic look around the room. This changes things. Keep an eye on the door. I'll need some time, half an hour at the very least. Nobody disturbs me, understand? He hastily pushes a couch and some potted plants out of the way, moves a bar stool, and takes out a curved knife. Cutting into his own arm, he lets some of his blood drip into the wooden floor. It's pretty fucked up, the way his flesh oozes the deep red thick vitae. That's how blood sorcery works like. For the most of the rituals, you do need the blood. The mage, the magic that TREMERE do, it actually bases on the blood itself. In life, you'd have found it stomach churning, but right now you feel weirdly turned on by the sight. What follows is more disturbing yet. With one hand, he sheaths the knife and seals the wounds. With the other, he smears the blood around him while muttering some weird chant. It sounds vaguely Latin, but you're pretty sure it isn't. It's all more than a little disconcerting, but he seems to know what he's doing. A few moments later, the circle starts glowing faintly and thin wisps of smoke surround Agathon. He sits down in the middle, legs crossed, eyes closed. Minutes pass. Agathon's face twitches from time to time, and his head turns every now and then as if he was looking around or listening in a conversation. The smoke grows thicker, forming a veil around the mage. You expected something more flashy, but it's still a sight to behold. You wonder what the point of it is, but refrain from asking. It's probably best to let Agathon do his thing. For close to 30 minutes, you're left to your own devices. Then suddenly, the door opens slightly and the manager leans into the room. You tense up for a second, but he just gives you an awkward smile. Anything you need? You shoo him away before he can take a closer look at your companion, and he retreats obediently. A few minutes later, Agathon casually gets up off the floor and walks over to the sofa. He pushes his hand in between the cracks in the upholstery and fishes something out. He then turns to you and nods. We're done here. Let's go. You make your way back to the elevator, passing the manager on your way. He gives you a slight, somewhat confused smile, but neither him nor any of his staff get in your way. Despite that, the elevator ride down feels tense and the two of you only relax once inside Agathon's car. He starts the engine and takes a ride into the Continental Army Plaza, back into the bridge. Also, I need some blood because I used my presence. Apparently it drains some blood. All doesn't actually use blood, but I understand how the game is working, so usually you would do a rouse check, so that would be throwing a dice and determining whether you gain hunger or not, but I feel like this game just has to punish you a bit for using your powers more often because it's a forceful way of moving through obstacle, in this case the manager, and we are able to do so easily using our disciplines, and because of that the hunger rises and we need to use the incentives later on to feed. So I understand the design standpoint, although it is not by the book. You're just about to say something, but he beats you to it. That went better than I expected, all things considered. It might have been a trick of the light, but you're pretty sure you just saw a smile. Oh, he smiled at me. That's a good boy. I'm used to working alone, but what I'm dealing with right now, it might require some more assistance. And you seem capable enough. So I'm guessing you found what you came for. Sort of. Enough to continue the search at any rate. That seems to deplete his social battery for the night. You drive the rest of the way in silence. He's my type of a guy. I like these guys that just are introverted enough that they deplete their batteries after speaking 4 sentences. This is my type of a person. And I got the achievement Enchanted to Meet You. That is a very nice name for an achievement. It doesn't take you long to reach the warlock's hideout. Agathon waves at you absent-mindedly, once again lost in his thoughts. Hopelessly so. That's totally my type, okay? Agathon is my type, alright? This is the kind of a guy I would follow to do blood rituals in a hotel with. One of these nights, you should probably take him up on his offer. Who knows? If you gain his trust, maybe you can actually break through his stoic facade and meet the man underneath. Tsundere Agathon. I like this one. Alright, let's rest. Shall we? Oh no, we actually can do something else. Interesting. I actually want to do this. Faith and Myth Part 2. I am very much still influenced by the Clothes of the Bloodgusts, and it seems to be a very interesting approach from this game, where we talk about the true faith and some topics which are not explored that often in Vampire the Masquerade mainstream stuff, like in the previous video game, for example. So we're going to go and talk to him. You've started to look at churches differently since your last encounter with Benoit. You're not sure what happened inside it, but it was unavoidably real. You felt it. When Benoit mentioned that being in the presence of Father Anthony's faith would eventually kill someone like you, an undead being, you believed him. Doesn't seem to be very common though. In New York, oh, by the way, this is like a more of a low quality background, because it seems to be very much based on the picture and has less moving factors. But it still is kind of nice, I guess. Yeah. The indoor ones are the most beautiful ones, definitely. But this one, yeah, this one is probably one of the weakest ones. Doesn't seem to be very common though. In New York, you pass thousands of people every night and none of them have made you feel so afraid and insignificant. If you were to encounter someone like Father Anthony in the subway or nightclub, you would know. There are many churches in the 5 boroughs, and you're pretty sure most of them don't contain someone whose faith can touch you in this way. Yet you've become wary. They just might. Still tonight, this one is way more beautiful in comparison. Still tonight, the cathedral looks as before, a striking landmark acting as a symbol of faith for people who have no idea that vampires exist in their midst. For them, questions of faith and myth are theoretical or philosophical. For you, those same questions suddenly define the meaning of your new existence. You sneak into the cathedral like an old hand, as if going to church had been a regular part of your life. Inside, the cathedral is almost deserted. You're not sure if you'll be meeting Benoit alone. The idea of feeling Father Anthony's faith on your undead flesh freezes you with terror. Benoit is waiting for you in the front pews of the cathedral in the exact same spot where you saw Father Anthony. Worried, you approach, but you don't feel the touch of faith that shook you before. Benoit nods as you sit next to him in the pew. Aren't you worried about meeting here? What if your friend, the priest, returns? Don't worry, he's not here tonight. You've had some time to think. I'm guessing you found the touch of Father Anthony's faith hard to ignore. For most people, God's presence is a question of faith. When I talk with Father Anthony, it feels like proof. Benoit is fervent, intense as he speaks. It's clear these questions have consumed his existence. Perhaps they'll consume yours, too. What do the kindred of the Camarilla believe? The old ones. It's true that elders are not always so good at teaching their children. Maybe the Camarilla would function better if we all knew these stories. Benoit looks around reflexively to make sure nobody is listening. There are only a few people in the enormous cathedral, and they don't seem to be interested in 2 loners murmuring to each other in the front pew. It might seem like an ancient history, things that happened thousands of years ago, but the time works differently for our kind. If the stories are true, there are Methuselahs still in existence who walked the earth when Jesus was alive. The only problem is that all vampires lie. They adjust the history to suit their egos. I have a theory about Benoit. I'm going to show it after we finish the meeting with him. Surely something was written down before the masquerade was established. Of course, the TREMERE have many interesting manuscripts in their libraries. I've seen a few. But if you have a chance, I would recommend looking at them. This is how the story goes. God cursed Cain as a punishment for the murder of Abel. Cain walked the night shunned by humanity and drank blood to sustain himself. Even from the point of our origin, we are damned. However, the story becomes really interesting when we move forward. Cain creates more of our kind, often referred to as the second generation. The number of steps between the vampire and the mythical Cain, how far descended from the first a given vampire is. Low generation provides great power, just as it does a stronger curse and hunger. That's true. So it is also measured in the V5 in terms of the blood potency. So the blood potency is actually something that you can still level up when you are on a, like, let's say 13th generation. You can still up it as long as you're not a thin blood that are bound to always have the blood potency of 0. You can use your experience to level up your blood potency. But in general, blood potency, what it means is that if you are potent enough, you may use rouse checks or reroll your rouse checks for using of the disciplines, which means that you are getting hungry less when you use your powers, meaning that you can use them more often, so you are by that mean more powerful. You also do get the bonuses for your disciplines, so they are more powerful in general. And most importantly, I would say, you do not sate the hunger as easily as regular vampires would. Normally, I believe you can take up to 2 points of hunger from a mortal without hurting them. If you take 3 points of hunger from, if you say it free, then you actually start to affect their well-being. If you take 4, then they may die. And the problem is that when you are an elder vampire of the elder generation with a higher blood potency, the single dot of blood from a human does not state a single blot of your hunger. So you need to take 2 for 1, and then you take 3 for 1. So the most powerful vampires out there do need to kill humans to sate their hunger. And that is very unfortunate. And that is also why they very rarely have high humanity. Unless, of course, they go the path of Golconda, in which way they can actually tame their hunger to some point. Yeah, it's a little bit of a gray area. They lived in the first city, later called Enoch, ruling openly over the city's human inhabitants. As in the first city as Cain's redemption, cursed by God to wander, he remade himself as a ruler and lawgiver, acting as an immortal shepherd to humanity. It only started to go wrong when the second generation begat the third, and vampires started to run amok. So the third generation, also known as the Antediluvians, who founded the great vampire clans. You can trace a direct lineage of blood to the Antediluvian of your clan. Yes, Antediluvians, the progenitors, members of the dreaded third generation and the founders of the 13 vampire clans. I do talk about them in my clan videos, so if you want to learn more about the Antediluvian of each clan, you can watch my videos to learn their history. They are all very interesting specimens. We know much more about them than we know about the second generation. After the first city, Cain largely departs the story. Perhaps he was disheartened by the depredations of his descendants. The Antediluvians went on to build a second city in imitation of the first, but it's doubtful their rule was just. There are people moving in the cathedral, and both you and Benoit have made sure none get close enough to hear you talk. As Benoit goes on, your undead senses detect something that deviates from the normal hubbub of devout mortals, cathedral workers, and tourists. You hear the squeaking wheels of an old wheelchair that hasn't been taken out too often. We've been doing this for 20 years and still you pull stuff like this, Michael. Why did you bring your sister? We're on the field. This is no place for the disabled. The voice is that of an older man, Midwestern. He sounds exasperated, as if he was raising an argument for the 100th time. She wanted to come. She doesn't get out of the house very often. Besides, you should be grateful, Bobby. We would have never found our new partners without her. The second voice belongs to an old man too. It's more intense and still holds echoes of a Russian accent. Okay. Yes, because she talked about vampires online. You got your door busted in by the FBI, as I remember. We did, sure, but we cleared the misunderstanding and now we're consultants, so quit your gripping. Bobby, Michael, play nice. You sound like an old couple. Third voice has a heavier Russian accent, and belongs to an older woman. All three have clearly known each other for a long time. Let's find Father Anthony and see if he can help us. From what I've heard, he's an exceptional man. Yeah, exceptional, but he doesn't like moles. You nudge Benoit and discreetly point out to the three people approaching you along the cathedral's central aisle. He nods in understanding. This is bad news, whoever these three are. We need to get out. Let's meet outside. No! We use celerity, they will notice and they will know that we are a vampire. Celerity actually breaks the masquerade. I mean, as long as they see you. If you're fast enough, then it doesn't, but I'm not going to risk it. Move discreetly. Better not to call attention to yourself. You decide to move to the side of the cathedral and pretend to pray at an altar. You walk casually towards the side, away from the three approaching mortals. You feel their eyes boring into your back, but you force yourself to be cool. Benoit is nowhere to be seen. You blinked and he disappeared in a burst of speed. Celerity! You're worried it was too conspicuous, but maybe the mortals missed it. You pretend to admire the architecture for a while before glancing back at the trio. They have settled at the exact spot you just occupied, apparently waiting for something and conversing in hushed tones. Once you're sure their attention is elsewhere, you start walking briskly down the side aisle towards the exit. That was a close call. Who are those three? Did you recognize them? I might have, I'm not sure. There's a talk of a few tenacious vampire hunters living in the city. One of them is supposed to be a woman in a wheelchair. But how can she be a vampire? Okay, true faith is powerful. That's fine. For a second, Benoit looks at you and if he was wondering whether he should say something. There's one thing I've always wondered about the story of Cain. The traditions of the Camarilla put a lot of faith in the relationship between sire and child. You're supposed to follow the example of your maker, yet Cain didn't really seem to care for the vampires he embraced. Did he think it was a mistake to create your kind? Does the kindred of the Camarilla really care what Cain thinks? Most don't. Still, he was the progenitor. You know, I'm Sophie's child, and you're her protégé. Really? Easy. It's amazing that we share an appreciation for the mythologies of our kind, considering Sophie has little interest in questions of spirits. You stare at Benoit. You knew there was something he wasn't telling you, but in all the talk about Cain and the First City, you forgot about it. Now the only question is, what does this mean? Does Sophie know her child is talking to you? Probably not. Don't hold it against me, but I admit finding some pleasure in seeing you suffer the effects of Father Anthony's faith. I suppose that's the demon in me. I understand that you're bitter, Benoit, but I'm not your enemy. I'm sorry, I know that. It's just that sometimes I too get tempted by sin. You know, we should meet again. We've talked so much about this myth, but maybe that's cowardly when the reality of faith is right in front of us. I'll introduce you to Father Anthony. You nod, unsure whether that's a good idea. He wants me dead, doesn't he? He's bitter that mommy is taking care of another son. And he wants me to die. This is not a good idea. I'm not going to meet this guy again. Benoit walks away and you follow his example, not wanting to hang around the cathedral any longer. Yep, I shouldn't trust this guy, I feel. My senses are tingling. Anyway, guys, that would be all for today. I'm going to meet you in the next episode. It was a really fun one. And yeah, we've met Agathon, we met this guy, because my theory, let me just very quickly tell you about Benoit, was that he's actually Sabbat, because the Camarilla is denouncing by majority the fact that antediluvians may still exist or may come back one day. They try to bury this deep within, and it's just not something that they want to even think about, because they know that if the antediluvians come back, the status quo of the Camarilla and the powerful vampires in charge wouldn't be in charge or wouldn't matter anymore. And the Camarilla is pushing that thought away, while Sabbat is actually very much concerned about the comeback of the antediluvians, and Sabbat vampires are inclined to fight the elders, the antediluvians, once they come back, and make sure that they can fight for their world for themselves. And that's why most of the Sabbat is not really existing in the series right now, and they very much disappeared, because apparently they are doing what they've been toiling for all of these years. There's a Gehenna War in the Middle East, to which the beckoning was calling most of the elders, and Sabbat just went there out of their own volition by majority, and they're just fighting the elders in the Gehenna world, about which we don't really know much about. It's still under the curtain, so I'm wondering if this is going to be explained in one of the future iterations of the V5. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for listening to me rambling about the lore. I really appreciate your patience for that, and I will see you in the next episode. Don't get lost in the night. Goodbye.